Welcome back, everyone. My name is Patrick. You're watching the Oilers Rundown. Jay Woodcroft had a great quote in his media availability today. The quote was simply, "We're in 2023 right now. Patience has an expiration date." The quote was in regards to players who the Oilers have been trying to get going all season long. We're approaching the halfway point of the season. Some guys, Fogle, Yamamoto, Puljujarvi, just to name a few. Some of those guys have dealt with injuries, but there's no denying they haven't gotten to the point where they've become real difference makers for the Edmonton Oilers. And right now, Jay Woodcroft is going to look down the lineup, look at the guys who are actually delivering for him, and he's going to give those guys the opportunity to show more. One guy in particular, Klim Kostin, he's getting his opportunity in the top six, playing with Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman, and he's joined in the top six by Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Kailer Yamamoto. Warren Fogle and Jesse Puljujarvi now find themselves in the bottom six. Jesse Puljujarvi is a player the Oilers in particular have been trying to get going, obviously trying to increase some kind of trade value. A Jesse Puljujarvi trade is coming, one way or the other. I think we've beaten that one to death. If the Oilers want to do anything of substance at the trade deadline, Jesse Puljujarvi and his $3 million has to go. Would have loved to have seen Puljujarvi work out here. I'm a Puljujarvi fan, but the time is now. He needs to go. The Oilers need to figure something else out with that cap space, and I just hope Jesse Puljujarvi can have a long, successful career somewhere else, but it's not going to be in Edmonton. Ken Holland, get that trade done. I'm sure he's on the phone, working the phones, trying to figure something out for this team, but it needs to happen, as we've all been saying, now. And a player the Oilers absolutely need to focus on is defenseman Jakob Chychrun with the Arizona Coyotes. I know, the Oilers don't seem to want him. We're always throwing cold water on the idea, but I have to keep bringing that name up. Ryan Rishaug on his Got Your Back podcast made an excellent point today. Chychrun is a guy that's worth $7-8 million on the open market. You have him for the next 3 years at $4.6 million if you can pull off that trade. 3 kicks at the can with Jakob Chychrun at $4.6 million is worth a huge price tag to the Edmonton Oilers. The next 3 years are massive for Edmonton. That's basically their window to win the Stanley Cup with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl under contract. If the Oilers don't win the Stanley Cup in that window, a lot of what Oilers fans have feared for years now could potentially come to pass. We could see McDavid and Draisaitl leave town. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen, but the Oilers need to start producing. Last year was a step in the right direction, making it to the Final Four, but I think we can all agree at this point, this team looks nothing close to a team that's even going to challenge to possibly get past the first round, let alone make the first round of the playoffs. Changes need to happen. A new identity needs to come in, and Jakob Chychrun would go a long way in helping the Oilers do that. Obviously, it's not all going to be centered around one player. More guys need to come in. We're probably looking at 2 or 3 guys. Some strong veteran leadership. The Oilers are really missing Duncan Keith, Mike Smith, and Chris Russell this year. No question whatsoever about that. They need to bring in some veteran leadership at the trade deadline. Jonathan Toews might be that guy that the Oilers really need to zero in on. But I'm sure there's other guys out there. Toews isn't the be-all, end-all, but definitely someone you could probably bring in as your third-line center if they can find a way to make it work. We've talked a lot about the Oilers and Blackhawks possibly coming together on a really huge trade. There's been a lot of names connected between the Oilers and the Blackhawks. Sam Lafferty, Max Domi, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane. Most recently, defenseman Jake McCabe, but we can actually pour cold water on that one. Insider Frank Saravalli and Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet have spoken recently that it looks like Jake McCabe has all 7 Canadian teams on his no-trade list. Obviously, there are ways around that. McCabe could ultimately waive and come to Edmonton, but it doesn't look like he wants to come to Canada, so that one may be already dead and buried. All the more reason to focus on a guy like Jakob Chychrun. Vladislav Gavrikov would help for sure. Joel Edmondson brings some toughness. Doesn't really get me excited. Hate the price tag of Xavier Bourgault going the other way. And speaking of Gavrikov, he's going to cost you a first and a third. I know the price tag for Jakob Chychrun is much, much higher than that. 2 first-round picks, prospects, plus We're probably losing a Dylan Holloway, a Xavier Bourgault, a Philip Broberg, and Evan Bouchard. Something big in that trade, possibly probably not two of those guys, but at least one of those guys would be going in that trade to Arizona, and it's a high price to pay. But like I said, the Oilers are looking at a 3-year window, the time to pay prospects, first-round picks, whatever you got to do to make this team better now. You need to do it. Yes, the Oilers will pay a price down the line. Not denying that, not saying it's not going to happen, but the Oilers just can't afford to be patient anymore. In oil country, we've all sat here for basically since 1990. We haven't won a Stanley Cup since then. We've had bits of success along the way, the 2006 Cup run, 2017, I believe it was, and obviously last year, the Final Four appearance. But having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, arguably the two best players in the NHL on your team, fighting for a wild card spot right now, playoffs in doubt. This is not an acceptable situation for this team, an acceptable situation for general manager Ken Holland. Jakob Chychrun is your absolute best choice to bring in right now for the Edmonton Oilers. Contract-wise, effect-wise, and as Craig Button brought up in Ryan Rishock's podcast, why not go for two of these guys? Bring in a Chychrun and a Gavrikov, or a Chychrun and an Edmondson. Make this team as good as you can possibly make it. McDavid, Draisaitl, those guys deserve that. They've watched this team get mangled for years now by Peter Chiarelli, partially by Ken Holland. It's time for the Oilers to make a real impact and to bring in some real impact players. And just before I wrap up, Jacob Vrana, a potential impact player for the Edmonton Oilers, was on waivers today. He did officially clear. He's got the $5.25 million cap hit for this year and next year, so definitely not a shock, but definitely a name to keep an eye on here going forward. He wiped all of the Detroit Red Wings connections through his social media, so he clearly wants a fresh start somewhere else. So I think Vrana is going to get moved somewhere. We know Ken Holland likes giving guys second chances. Evander Kane worked out really well for the Edmonton Oilers. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think that's all for me for now, guys. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comment section below. If this is your first visit to the channel and you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing for all the latest Oilers content. You've been watching the Oilers Fanatic. Thanks for being a fan. Take care, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.